starting point. The GOP campaigns are moving their campaigning to Puerto Rico. There are 23 delegates up for grabs in Puerto Rico, and Rick Santorum was there yesterday. Mitt Romney's going to head there tomorrow. It's an opportunity, of course, to get votes, an opportunity for mistakes, of course. Rick Santorum was asked if he would support making Puerto Rico a state, and he told the local newspaper this. Like any other state, there has to be compliance with this and any other federal law, and that is that English has to be the principal language. There are other states with more than one language, such as Hawaii, but to be a state of the United States, English has to be the principal language. But that's not really true, is it? Are many lawyers on the panel today. It's not true at all. All right, let's bring in Puerto Rico's Democratic Congressman Pedro Pierluisi joining us. It's nice to see you, sir. Thank you for being with us. Let me start with what your reaction is. Thank you to Mr. Santorum's comments, the reaction of yourself and then others in Puerto Rico after reading these comments in the newspaper.
Well, first, it's incorrect to say that there's a federal law imposing English as the only official language in our states. The Constitution doesn't provide anything along those lines either. And in Puerto Rico, as a matter of fact, we have two official languages, English and Spanish. Santorum's view is a narrow and limiting view of what America is all about. English, it is the predominant language in the U.S. and will continue to be so, whether Puerto Rico becomes a state or not. And in Puerto Rico, 90% of our parents want their children to become fluent in English. So it's a non-issue and shouldn't be a factor in determining whether Puerto Rico can join the Union or not.
There's a whole vote on this, of course, come November. Puerto Rico's trying, those who want statehood for Puerto Rico will decide if that happens in November. But explain to me the whole federal law on this, Jeff Toobin, about English only, because this has been something that's been debated, certainly, for a long time.
It's been debated, but there has never been any federal law that says English is the official lange of the United States.
There are 31 states that have decided
state provisions, but there are many federal laws that say you have to make available to citizens government benefits, government obligations in the language that they understand. I mean, when you have an American courtroom, I used to be a federal prosecutor, it is a requirement that you have an interpreter there, whether they are speaking Spanish or Urdu or Farsi, whatever it is. The idea is the government has to make sure that people understand what's going on, not that people have an obligation to speak English.
Politically speaking, as you're campaigning for votes in Puerto Rico, is this going to be a tough issue for him, do you think, Judge?
He ought to save his money and buy a house now. He's managed to make everybody angry. You know, this is absolutely nuts. Puerto Rico is not going to be a state. This is not the first time there's going to be a referendum on the issue. It's non-binding. He's not a congressman. He's a resident commissioner. He has no power, the fellow we just saw on television. $25 billion goes out of this country every year to Puerto Rico in transfers and aid. It's the nuttiest thing you ever heard. It's a colony. And for him to engage in this kind of behavior, Santorum, shows that he's become kind of a doofus about the matter and shouldn't talk about things having to do with America's last colony at all.
With that kind of far-end run to the spectrum that the judge just exhibited, I have to then point out this wouldn't be the first time, although Jeff's right, there is no federal law requiring English to be the official language. You know, when Louisiana was brought into the country, the government said you need to adopt English as your language, that you do official business. When Oklahoma in 1906 came into the nation, there was a law that said you have to have public schools conduct English as your official language. It's not the first time, so let's not paint Santorum as a doofus or some kind of xenophobic. This is not unprecedented.
No, but the point is, this is not about the language. This is Santorum being used by local politicians about a referendum that has absolutely no binding whatsoever. Puerto Rico's not going to become a state. This referendum has happened all the time, and he's just become like a pawn in this game of local politics.
Well, let's go back to Congressman Pierluisi. You have pushed for better instruction in both English and Spanish for students in Puerto Rico. Is the quality of English education in Puerto Rico a problem?
We have to enhance it, and you're right, that's what I have been doing. But let me clarify the record. First of all, I am a member of Congress. I represent 3.7 million American citizens in Congress. My title is resident commissioner, but don't forget, Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. We are American citizens, and the question of statehood, two things must happen for that to occur. The people of Puerto Rico must request it, and then Congress must grant it. And to say that it is out of the question when you don't really, we haven't had the vote yet. The last time the people of Puerto Rico were consulted on this issue was 14 years ago. It is about time that we know whether the people of Puerto Rico aspire to become a state, and that's going to happen in November. So you go step by step, but to impose on Puerto Rico a condition that no other state has, it's unreasonable. By the way, federal agencies conduct their business in Puerto Rico in English, and our government in Puerto Rico, whenever required, provides services in English as well. So it's just a matter of getting the record straight.
What's the fallout been in Puerto Rico in terms of how the election you feel is going to go? How are the polls going in Puerto Rico?
Well, our governor is affiliated with the Republican Party. He has endorsed Mitt Romney. I would expect that Romney will prevail. We'll see on Sunday. But in terms of the general elections in the U.S., President Obama has been great here in Puerto Rico. He included Puerto Rico in his ARA program, in the stimulus. He also increased considerably the funding that Puerto Rico gets for its health programs. There's no parity, but we got an enhancement as part of the Affordable Care Act, and he's been straightforward on the status issue. He has told the people of Puerto Rico that he will support the will of the majority of the people of Puerto Rico when the time comes for them to express themselves on the status issue.
Which will
he's been with us.
Which will be come November. We're out of time, but I want to thank you, Congressman Pierluisi, for joining us this morning. We certainly appreciate your remarks on that. All right.
Thank you.
Still ahead this morning on Starting Point.